In my last video, I talked about an ending to Cyberpunk 2077 that broke me. I also mentioned in that video that I thought the worst ending to the game was the Arasaka ending. And in another video, I'm going to be talking about which ending I think is the best. For anyone familiar with the multiple endings to the game, it can be pretty clear which of these I'm going to pick. Though both of these endings are just personal opinions, as each of the endings in the game have a lot of great to them, so there's different perspectives as to which could be the worst or the best. So let's start off with the worst ending, the Arasaka ending.
Oh, yeah!
The Arasaka ending starts off from the rooftops where Misty took us to decide what to do. We call Hanako and tell her we will go with her to Arasaka so she can take us to Mikoshi. Through the phone call, we find out that Yorinobu has put her under house arrest at the Arasaka estate and that she needs to be freed if we are to get our cure. We head downstairs, and while we're waiting for our ride, we get a tarot reading from Misty, which are honestly scarily accurate in all the endings. Through the reading, it is mentioned that we are treading down a dangerous path, and she tells us to be careful. After the reading, our ride arrives, and it's Hellman that has become our chauffeur. Remember him? He was the guy that developed the relics, so it's a good sign that Hanako actually means business when it comes to our cure. We pass out in his car, and at that point we know that time is running out, and has been since our meeting at Embers. We get to the Arasaka estate and deal with the guards to rescue Hanako and take the AV to Arasaka. She plans to interrupt a board meeting and present the evidence that Saburo was murdered at this board meeting. Before heading up to the executive floor, we actually take the elevator going down from Saburo's office. It's here that we get a pretty big revelation. Saburo Arasaka had his psyche copied to an engram before he died. This would be Hanako's backup if V's testimony is not good enough. Once she's packed up Papa Saburo, we take the elevator up to the board meeting. At this meeting, we see the board of directors, but Yorinobu himself is nowhere to be seen. Hanako gets some pushback from the board members, even as V gives her testimony as to what actually transpired at the Konpeki Plaza. She then presents the big chief himself at the meeting, and immediately the board members surrender. This doesn't stop Yorinobu's plan, as he orders his troops to start gunning down the board members, assuming Hanako was still back at the estate. This makes me think that he really doesn't care for his other sister, Michiko, if she was there, and she could have died. Anyways, we deal with the troops and head over to Yorinobu after wading through the civil war that is broken out in the company building. We deal with Adam Smasher and get our revenge for dear old Johnny, then head over to where Yorinobu is situated. We find him on the floor, admittedly looking like he's been defeated. Apparently, he was enacting his plan in every branch of Arasaka around the world, each one failing in big fashion. He is defeated by this and can do nothing but lay on Hanako's lap. We head downstairs where Hellman had been prepping Mikoshi and take our plunge to begin the process for the cure. Once Soul Killer has been used on us, we talked with Johnny in cyberspace. He's not happy at all with our decision, and it makes it known through our entire conversation. V tells him it was the best option since the relic was made in Arasaka and everything done up to that point was so she could survive. Johnny retorts that V basically betrayed herself. Once Johnny leaves us, we wake up on the operating table. Seems they were able to remove the chip and cure us. Although something's wrong. Why is everything purple? The doctor mentions that the purple thing is temporary, but we have also lost some of our memories. Some will come back, some of which we have lost forever. The guard takes us to our room where V tries to rest and hopefully gets everything back to normal. After waking up, we see on the news that Saburo lives again and has taken Yorinobu's body for his own. Everybody makes their worries about this known. The religious leaders, some companies, and even the local people are all worried that Saburo has basically become immortal. The doctor walks in and says we have to do some tests. Reading tests, solving a Rubik's Cube, an empathy test, with running on the treadmill being the last of the tests. We fail all of them except the reading test. The doctor also allows us to make phone calls, and we call everyone on our list. Judy has been worried this whole time since we've been missing for what seems like several days now. We tell her that we actually got the chip out of our head. She's ecstatic about this, but it's still Arasaka, so she wants us to get back to Earth ASAP. Carrie is busy filming, so he couldn't talk. River couldn't talk because it sounded like he was in the middle of something, and actually neither could Pan Am for that matter. Apparently, she was meeting with Mitch about something, so she had to cut the talk short. Vic is the only one that actually gives us a lot of time other than Judy. He's glad to hear from us, and we give him the news that the chip has been removed. Vic is happy about the news and tells us to check in with him for a visit. He also tells us that Misty went to see her folks in Warsaw, so we can't get a hold of her even if we wanted to. Hanako obviously completely ignores our call. I guess since we both end up our ends of the bargain, she has no further need to keep that line open? I don't know. From here on, it's tests, and failing each one. V is done with these tests. She wants absolutely no more, and she tears the room apart in her unbridled rage. After we wake up, we are greeted by a familiar face. It's Hellman again. He has come on Hanako's behalf and is the bearer of bad news. Even though the chip has been removed and the engram has been destroyed, sorry Johnny, we are still going to die because the biochip did too much to our body on the genetic level, and so we are gonna die in about 6 months. Hellman has been sent by Hanako to give us a choice. We either become an engram ourselves, since we can't go to the Saburo route, we don't have kids, and they still honestly haven't worked out the problem to use anybody, not just blood relations, or we can go back home with our 6 months. Choosing to leave, we grab our stuff, give the doctor the bird, then we go through the airlock, look at Earth through the station window, and we rip off the necklace. Choosing the engram option, we basically surrender ourselves to Arasaka. V looks timid and scared as she approaches the operating table as she's clutching the necklace very tightly. She sits and looks on to the deep void of space as the sunroof to the operating table opens. And that is where this scene ends. For the sake of our discussion of the worst ending, we will be picking the engram option. Both of these options end with the same phone calls from our friends during the end credits. Vic asks how it is up in space and to make sure we stop by his clinic sometime to catch up and stuff. Mama Wells is under the assumption that we are some sort of big shot just because we're in a space station with Arasaka, and honestly Judy ends up leaving Night City, which also effectively means she's leaving V. With all the talk about leaving Night City in the last video, it made sense that she was gonna do so eventually. Panam says she's getting more or less along with Saul and the Aldecaldos are growing. She is thankful to V since if it wasn't for her, she'd still be stuck in Night City instead of back with her family and as a co-leader too. I know we saved this line from the Raffins, but it's still interesting we get a call from Saul. He mentions that we are one of the family even if we didn't go through their ending and that they would do anything for V. Mitch wants us to drop by the camp and tries to sell us on staying with the Aldecaldos with barbecues, racing, Raffins and all that. And honestly, considering everything else in Night City, it doesn't sound like a bad way to live. Aldecaldos are great people and they're very welcoming, so why not? Ro gives 2 messages, both of which are to Johnny, calling him names but also saying that it was great to talk to him again. Carrie is gonna go on tour with the Uscracks. Funny how that worked, right? We blew up their truck with their gear and he even had a gun to their faces but is now going to make music with them. River mentions about a bust that happened where they got a lot of equipment but he wants to use it for a better purpose rather than blowing it up to smithereens. It looks like Jefferson won the election since he's now mayor of Night City. He's calling to ask us to be head of his security, and since that whole spying on him and his wife thing went down, and also the mind control thing which I didn't tell him about, he has an issue of trust which I can understand where he's coming from. Misty gives us another foreboding tarot reading card and tells us to be careful. So, why is this ending the worst? Well, for starters, it's basically the idea of selling your soul to the devil. The whole game we've been hearing about the terrible things the corps have done, rumored to have done, or rumored to be doing. The mind control thing from Night Corp, Cynosure and its exploitation of rogue AIs with Militech, Biotechnica bulldogging farmers out of their land so the corps can use it, the list goes on. And even with choosing the engram route, there's absolutely no guarantee that we are ever going to get another body. I'm pretty sure a mercenary that robbed their company once before would be pretty far down the list to get a new body. And if V does actually get a body, who's to say when that will happen? A few months, a few years, a few decades? What's worse is by that time, everyone we know and love will be dead or so far and away that any hope of reconnecting is slim at best. Speaking of everyone we know and love, we lost Judy, we lost Johnny, we lose Panem and the Aldecaldos, Mama Wells, Misty, Vic, and everyone else we've grown really close with throughout our entire time playing the game. We also relinquish all of our rights since engrams aren't technically living people, right? So they get free reign to do whatever they want with us. Johnny also mentions living by a code or principle, something that V initially had according to him. Would the old V have ever done a deal with Arasaka to be saved? Would the old V basically kill off a friend, in this case Johnny, just so she could survive? Those are the questions that Johnny asked and something that V basically shrugs off, stating that this was all to survive and get her life back to normal. V also ends up helpless and weak right after the operation, something that contrasted how strong she was while fighting to find the cure. We couldn't take more than a few seconds of running or walking on the treadmill before falling over. We couldn't even solve a Rubik's Cube. We went through test after test after test, driving both V and myself insane at the whole ordeal. Even after all of that, the tests, the amount of blood, effort, sweat, tears it took to get there, that V was still going to die before winter? If that isn't soul crushing, I don't know what is. Would V ever take this option? Honestly, if V was following logic, who else could honestly save her from the biochip outside of the company that made it? The logical choice would be to go and deal with Arasaka even if it carries a lot of risk with it. But going off V's character, how she's been portrayed and the way she does things, I don't think so. Throughout her entire time in Night City, V has seen how bad corpos can get, even when she was one herself, getting everything taken away from her at a moment's notice and almost killed just because she was ordered by her supervisor to kill his boss. It was a lose-lose situation for V, and she was quickly cut off from all of her assets and her finances. And how she was badly treated at Arasaka, and with how her character is, I think she would have fought tooth and nail before ever submitting to Arasaka and explored all her other options before that. And now we've signed a contract where Arasaka basically owns V? I don't think this would be an option V would ever go for. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for following to the end of this video. I know it's not as heartfelt and emotional as my last one was, but I am still having such a blast with this game and finding out new things and going through the different endings that I just want to talk about, even if it may not be as heartfelt as the last one. And now that we're done with talking about the worst ending, I hope to see you all in my next video where I talk about the best ending. I think everyone already knows what that ending is going to be, but I want to keep it a mystery as much as I can. Anyways, with that, everyone, I hope you have a great day and see you in the next one.